Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Venture Forge webinar, looking back at Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and hopefully sharing with you some really good insights as to what happened in the market, what happened across our client base, some key categories, and then we're going to follow that up with a live Q&A session with two of our fantastic guests. We've got Jake Browett, one of our advertising managers at Venture Forge and recent award winner of the Amazon Ads Awards. And we've got Becca Woollin, who is one of our account directors and looks after a good number of our clients. And we're going to get into a really good Q&A with those guys, delving into what happened over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, their strategies, their recommendations for going forward. And of course, a really good chance for anybody on the webinar to ask questions of me or Jake or Becca as we go through. Hope you're all sat comfy. I want to make a start, take you through some information that we've pulled together on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. As please start getting your questions in as we go through. We will get to as many of those as we can at the end. But if you want to kind of click on the questions tab, bottom right-hand corner, start firing them in as we go, and we'll get to them as soon as we can do. So let's make a start. Before I kick on, a very quick introduction to Venture Forge. I'm sure those of you that have been on these webinars a few times have seen this time and time again, but this will be the only pseudo sales pitch that we've got for you today. Venture Forge, for those that don't know, are a full service Amazon agency. We work with brands across all categories on Amazon, across the UK, Europe and North America, regardless of their selling model. And it's our job to help brands get more out of Amazon. Whether they're looking for operational support, marketing support, strategic support, we work with brands of all shapes and sizes to help them get more out of Amazon. And if that's something you'd like to find out more about, please just drop me a line on andy@ventureforge.co.uk or visit our website at ventureforge.co.uk. There's some of the brands that we work with. As I say, I'm not going into a sales pitch on us today, but we do work with brands of all shapes and sizes. From brands like Zenbi, who are a startup pasta brand, to phenomenal brands like Kodak, on to brands like Sous Vide Tools and Viewpoint Solutions, who are absolute leaders in their category. Final plug for the day. For those that haven't seen this before, we launched and sponsored the Marketplace Awards last year, which was a really credible awards event for sellers on Amazon in the UK. Run by experts on Amazon, judged by experts on Amazon, and really trying to find the best in the UK at running Amazon businesses. The Marketplace Awards is coming back for January 2024, with the awards event running around the end of April time. There'll be a lot more information released in January when we're back from the Christmas break. But if you'd like to get your brand into the Marketplace Awards, keep your eye out on the marketplaceawards.com, where we'll be sharing a lot more information in the next few weeks. Okay, let's get into why you're all here. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I kind of struggled for what to call this because I don't think Black Friday, Cyber Monday really sums up anymore what is and what has become a much broader trading event. I think Black Friday, Cyber Monday is what we still know it as, or Cyber Week. This is now really covering the bulk of November, and it's that kind of pre-Christmas, pre-peak discount event that the consumers are really looking forward to each year. But we're starting to sense that brands are scratching their head about a little bit more and working out how should I participate, when should I participate. What I'm going to show you today is some of our insights as a brand. So this initial data set that I'm going to share with you is across our entire client pool, which now accounts for between 45 and 50 million pounds of annual revenue and covers pretty much every category on Amazon UK, Europe, and there's some North America data in here. A few highlights really coming out for us this year. One that should become really obvious. The green line on there is this year. The black line on there is last year's data. Last year's data is just realigned slightly to make sure that Black Friday and Cyber Monday are aligned in here. So it's not the 1st of November versus the 1st of November. This is 1st of November versus the 2nd of November because Black Friday landed a calendar day different in last year, but the peaks are aligned. What we're really seeing here is the size of the event and how much early that's starting. You can really see the sales growth was there right from the 1st of November. What we'd also normally expect to talk about on this chart is how much bigger was Black Friday, how much bigger was Cyber Monday. But the real data point that stands out in here for us now is what people are starting to call Fake Friday. That Friday, the 17th of November, was really when the first chunk of growth came through in our client set. And we've seen this in various different categories in Amazon as a whole, which I'll come on to towards the end of this quick presentation. Black Friday, Cyber Monday is now really about three things. It's about November overall, and you can see that really coming through in the growth. Fake Friday, that earlier Friday before Black Friday, is now a significant growth opportunity for brands. And that's then followed by a much bigger step up across that first week, 17th to the 21st of November-ish. And then Black Friday kicks in with Cyber Monday following. So really the excitement of this event is no longer about those 2 days or that 4-day weekend. There's so much opportunity coming through right at the very beginning of November, and especially really kicking in what was a 4-day trading period is now really becoming a 10 to 14-day trading period from Fake Friday onwards. How big are those peaks? Well, coming to Fake Friday, 189% growth year on year on Fake Friday, followed by 71% on Black Friday and just 34% on Cyber Monday. Now, behind this, there could be a whole host of reasons why Cyber Monday wasn't quite as big, and I'm not going to get to that level of granularity today, but we could have stock outs going on there. We could have a lack of consumer demand. In reality, it's probably a good chunk of both. And when we've looked at the market data, about 34% is probably suppressed from what some of the people in the market achieved. But the real standout here, that as I kind of alluded to, is that real peak that people are seeing on Fake Friday. 189% growth is phenomenal, and we think this is something that brands have to really start to face into next year as to how can they really capture that big consumer moment, which in terms of a growth opportunity is much bigger than is coming through on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Getting down to a bit more granularity, looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday by the hour. So for clarity, this is the 4 days of Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, followed by Cyber Monday. And what we're seeing here is probably 4 key trends that are starting to come through. Whilst the shape of the hours look very similar and very familiar to last year's events, we're seeing 4 key points. One, that early bargain hunting right at the very left-hand side of that chart. The amount of growth in consumers sat there at midnight looking to jump on and grab those early bargains. I think for us that work in retail, we know that those bargains were probably there the day before, but this consumer moment, that mindset of Black Friday started, let's grab those deals, was certainly there this year, much stronger than it was in previous years. What we then saw was a much quicker start and a much more aggressive start in the early hours of Black Friday, with consumers really jumping into value, really buying a lot higher volume of product much earlier in the day. And then the sustainment of that growth and that trading pattern throughout the day, more importantly, into the midday and the evening. What we saw last year, as you can see in the chart, was a morning spike, a lunchtime spike, an evening spike, which typically follow people's buying patterns. You're maybe buying in the morning before work, buying on lunch at the computer, buying in the evening once they've got home, had dinner, got the kids to bed. But this year, that trading pattern was much more sustained throughout the day. And I think that probably leads me on to think about how do you manage your media budgets through that day, and how do you keep on top of advertising and ever-changing trading patterns. Across the weekend, you can see much spikier on Saturday. You can see that afternoon spike really kicking in on the Sunday. What also really stood out was that end of event surge right at the very end of Cyber Monday. Even though the growth there was only 34%, the bulk of that growth actually came through at the back end of the day. Is that a consumer moment of let's quickly get onto Amazon, let's buy what we can do before value disappears and before deals get pulled out of the market? So that's taken from our data. As I say, what I now want to share with you is 3 major categories that we've analysed at a market level. So this isn't from VentureForge data. This is looking at the Amazon market overall in the UK and looking at 3 of Amazon's largest categories to see how they performed. And for those that joined our last webinar, these are the same categories we analysed when we looked at the last Prime Day event in October. So coming on first to toys and games, a big category at this time of year, building into Christmas peak. We'd normally expect to see quite significant growth here anyway, and perhaps unsurprisingly, that's exactly what's happened. What we're looking at here is 2 data points: the sales value going through that category as a whole, and the average price point, which is the orange line. Quite interestingly, I mean, bear in mind here, we're looking at a category overall. We're looking at 15 million units that have been sold. So within here, you could have had some people discounting, some people not discounting. But when you look at that average price point of that category overall, there was a small increase. What I'd expect to see over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, is a small decrease, a medium decrease, but actually seeing an increase in average price point here. But the category as a whole grew by 54%. on that Black Friday weekend. You can see, of course, that growth starting to kick in at the beginning of November, pretty much in that third week where it starts to accelerate, but they start to show the importance of Black Friday, Cyber Monday as a trading event for a category that is absolutely pivotal when it comes to peak trading. What did that look like for the brands that were involved? For those that were on the last webinar, Lego was the category dominator over the last Prime Day. Lego clearly has won and dominated again, but what is really telling here is when we looked at the 4-week period surrounding the last Prime event, Lego did around £11 million of sales on Amazon. Over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that was, the 4 weeks surrounding Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that was a £25 million revenue line for Lego just from Amazon in the UK. The bulk of that growth came through in that Black Friday, Cyber Monday period. And what you can't see in the lines below for Barbie, who was still in the mix around the Prime days, Funko and VTech, that growth has been nowhere near as significant, even in terms of percentages. So Lego really, really keen on their Amazon strategy, clearly doing something right and clearly getting really good growth over that Black Friday, Cyber Monday period. How did they do that? Well, from Lego, it wasn't heavily discount driven. Their average price point of £74 has remained relatively stable over that 4-week trading period. So although with such significant growth, you may expect a massive discount lever to have been pulled, across the board, that's really not happened with Lego. And even for the other brands that are in the mix, that price point has been sustained really well. Moving on to beauty, where there's actually quite a different picture. Looking at the brands and looking at the brands overall and looking at how the categories changed, beauty overall on Amazon saw 90% growth, and that was driven by a slight increase again in average selling price. So we're not seeing at the top level in the category massive discounting going on. What we are seeing, however, is some very, very hefty growth. And when I was going to the next level and show you where some of that growth has come from, you will see here that discount clearly has a much more pivotal role to play, but it also suggests that not every brand in this category is discounting anywhere near as heavy as the example that we'll take you through. So who saw that success? So bear in mind with Lego, we were talking 11 million to 25 million step up over that 4-week period. And we were talking 100 and something % growth in that final week. Here we've put the growth in X terms rather than percent terms because the percentages just look ridiculous. Remington pretty much came out of nowhere, relatively nowhere compared to the other brands in this category, and came into Black Friday, Cyber Monday with a 25 times sales increase on their brand across that Black Friday, Cyber Monday week. And actually data points here exclude a little bit of Cyber Monday because our data points run up until the end of the calendar week on a Sunday. What this also masks, however, is the massive success of the brands that sit below it. If we put this in percentage terms, Maybelline still grew by 500%. They 5x their sales value in the Black Friday, Cyber Monday week. It's actually a huge success of Remington that has drowned out the equivalently huge success of the other brands that sit below this. What's also really telling is how much the sales volume kicks in this category in that Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, how much consumers are sitting and waiting for this beauty category to go to discount potentially, or at least for there to be perceived discount to trigger that purchasing and start to move into that peak buying pattern. How did Remington succeed? So it was this one single item, the hair straightener, that drove the bulk of their success. And quite interestingly, this wasn't done over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. What we can't tell is why they did it this way, but what we can see is that across that product, Remington drove around a 37% discount, and that kicked in from Fake Friday, not from Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That level of discount and going early made them the #1 bestseller in the entire beauty category for 7 days running up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and drove them approximately £16 million of sales on that one line. That was all done before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Now, we can read a lot into that. That could either be a super clever strategy. Let's go early. Let's get in there before everybody else discounts. Getting that level of sales velocity, move them into that bestseller position before Black Friday, Cyber Monday could have been a really deliberate strategy. Equally, this could have been a level of discount they might not have needed to get to. They could have run out of stock before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's certainly some data in their bestseller rank that suggests that may have been what happened because it fell off a cliff relatively the moment Black Friday, Cyber Monday kicked in. Either way, a huge sales value success. Perhaps questions to be asked here around the intent, why they did that, what the strategy was, and what that drove in terms of margin and profit success. But from a top line point of view, this looks to be a phenomenally clever piece of work by Remington and some really good success that's come through. Moving into home and kitchen. Again, quite different patterns here. So across the home and kitchen category overall, what we saw is, at a category level, a significantly early start. If you look at the level of growth between Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that week of the 25th or the week of the 18th, it's less pronounced. The category only grew by 37% week on week. However, that Black Friday, Cyber Monday week was still 66% up on what the base of that category looks like if we went back a couple of weeks before this reporting period. And what we're really seeing here is that early start, the importance of value or brands moving to value in this category a week earlier around that fake Friday point. It's actually more significant and works a lot better in this category. And again, when I bring you onto one of the examples here, you can see a really clever trading strategy implemented by one or two brands that have driven them some really good strategic success over that period. What brands have succeeded? So let's take Ninja, the blue line. Ninja are the hero in this category. When we last shared this data around the Prime Day event, they were the category leader. You can really clearly see there a 2-week strategy in that blue line deployed by Ninja. They clearly went after the fake Friday audience, grew their sales significantly at that point, and then grew them again marginally from that point onwards. If you look at the tealy green looking line, Shark, still part of the same brand family, Shark Ninja, clearly there also a 2-week trading pattern and real clarity around what they're trying to do on Amazon. And both of those brands, if you compare them to what they achieved around the last Prime Day, £10 million growth in the Ninja brand, £8 million growth in the Shark brand. So very clever, very clear trading strategy. Russell Hobbs still did very well in there, but what's really interesting here is Silent Night, although they've traded okay over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, clearly had a much stronger trading proposition around the last Prime Day event. And versus Prime Day, Silent Night have actually stepped backwards by about £2 million. They've gone from around £8 million over that 4-week period around Prime Day, back to £6 million over this event. So clearly something amiss, or perhaps a slightly different play from them, maybe a profit focus over this last event. Let's just focus a little bit on Shark and how did they achieve this. I say plus 20 million, so their price point was £20 up versus Prime Day overall at a brand level. And there was very minimal price variance actually for them over this 4-week period. That might suggest that they've done relatively minimal discounting. But when I share with you actually what they've done on their best-selling product, you can see the impact of some marginal price decreases, the lighter blue with the tealy green line there. That price point only degraded by around £28 over that 4-week period on their best-selling product. What you can see in the darker blue line is the sales value that came through that. And this is fundamentally the product that drove the growth of their entire brand over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And compared to the Russell Hobbs, so the Remington example earlier on, a much lower level of discount, somewhere around 10% of the price point, deployed quite clearly in 2 chunks over 2 weeks, the fake Friday into the Black Friday weekend, drove a huge amount of success to them. And I can't help but feel some of this has come also from having an unbelievably great product in the right place at the right time. This product is supported by a huge amount of above-the-line advertising. If you're watching anything like Freevee on your Fire Stick, you can see this product being advertised very clearly with a huge media budget behind it. But the way that this has been brought to life on Amazon and traded over Black Friday, Cyber Monday was £28 of total discount, stepped £14 at a time. So at Fake Friday, the price decreased by around £14. Coming into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a further £14 discount drove a total of around £9.5 million of sales on that one product alone. I think for me, unbelievably smart strategy, very clear as a brand. And when you throw Shark into here as part of their brand portfolio, really clear, well thought through trading strategy from a group of brands that know exactly how to play Amazon and also understand the importance of price elasticity. Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, any discount period on Amazon doesn't need to be about hefty discount. It's about how you deploy discount, how you trade, and how you maximize that consumer mindset. And I think for me, Shark and Ninja as a group have got that absolutely spot on. I think before we move into kind of a Q&A with our guests today, just want to wrap up here on the data that we're sharing. We've talked a lot about different categories today and our clients' portfolio as a whole. If any of that has left you asking questions about your Black Friday, your Cyber Monday strategy, feel free to take a quick yes on the poll that should be popping up in your screen anytime now, if that's working. I'm hoping the team have got this going in the background, but feel free to take a quick yes on that. If not, click no. But if you are asking questions, want to know a little bit more about how your brand did on Amazon, or want to understand more about how your brand could do more on Amazon over key trading events, take a quick yes in that box and one of the team will be in contact with you shortly. Okay, well, look, thank you for your time listening to that. I was going to quickly close the presentation and invite our two guests up to the screen to join us. If Jake and Becca would like to join us on the screen. Hopefully this works. Thank you, Jake.
Morning, Becca.
Morning.
Great morning, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Thankfully, now this is the bulk of my hard work done. I get to ask you guys some questions as our resident experts. And as I've said to the audience, please do start getting your questions in. We'll go through probably 10 or so questions with Jake and Becca, and then open it up to audience questions as we go. I think, Becca, I probably want to start with you first of all. You're one of our account directors. You lead the strategy across a broad number of our clients. I think if we divided our revenue in half, you're probably managing 25, 30 million of revenue for our clients. I can't quite remember exactly what sits with you at the minute, but if I start with you, Becca, what were the most effective strategies for our clients over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and were there any strategies that didn't work over that period?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, we've kind of deployed quite a few across the board. With different categories, obviously we've had to play it slightly differently. Anyone who was on our Prime Day July webinar will know that I am super against promos, so it's been a really big learning curve for me this Black Friday. But quite a lot of the ones that have worked really well for us have been where our clients have used external traffic, so email pushes and Instagram pushes and any kind of social media pushes direct into product pages where we've potentially gone into a deal, or we're offering an additional discount code so that those people that are coming are bringing their own discount codes rather than us having one live on Amazon. They've worked really well for us. In a client within the grocery sector where we had 2 lightning deals live, thank you to Amazon's deal team, they were having an absolute shocker of a Black Friday until the email went out and we saw a significant drive. We had almost half of our revenue came within the hour of that email landing, and that was all customers who had signed up to the client's email database but had never actually purchased. So it was really great to see that we can start to use that and manipulate that data. What I'd also build into there is not focusing on your regular customers, as it were. So setting up your discounts to think about your long-term maintenance of a client. So getting people through subscribe and save vouchers. So if you subscribe with us, we'll give you a big discount for your first ones. They've worked really well for us. But also, and I hate to say this because I don't always like to go back on myself, varying discount types across varying products and discount levels as well. So 10%, 15%. We didn't go much heavier than 33% across our client base within my pod specifically. And then what we did see from a negative point of view was, I quite like your Fake Friday point that you've pulled out there, Andy. People within our group of clients that actually participated in the full 14 days, we actually saw significant promotion fatigue. So a really nice spike on Fake Friday, kind of maintaining up until Black Friday, but then expecting heavier discounts around Black Friday, in which they just dropped off. We had no further discounts. People had already purchased. For me, I still stand very strongly by the fact that you don't have to discount. Look at Lego. That's a brilliant example. I was so happy you pulled that out. They were full price and they did great. And I think that this year has been very different for me, for someone who's actually worked on Amazon for a long time. People definitely seem to be waiting for payday. So Black Friday was much bigger. And while it always looks more exciting, I do think we have to think about the fact that that's probably everyone's last payday before the Christmas payday. So it's not necessarily that you just saw a spike, you still saw kind of what I would call an inflated spike that then decreases after Black Friday. But for me, external traffic pushes are now becoming the big thing for Amazon, and subscribe and save for FMGC where you can do it. I would recommend that you start using those vouchers.
There's some really interesting bits in there for me, Becca. I think historically Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the mindset for the consumer has been heavy discount, and that's played inside a retailer going, I've got to heavy discount.
Yeah.
And when you look at the context of what's happening in the world, the consumer mindset has shifted. The economy is under pressure. I wouldn't use the word recession or negative, but I do think that the consumer is thinking, where do I spend my money? And thinking very cleverly about it. You've then got the timing and landing of Christmas this year that actually does land around or before payday. So our consumers thinking, this is my last opportunity to grab value. I've got to do the Christmas shop now. My wife, I hope she's not dialed into this because she's but she's unbelievably well organised and everything is listed and it's planned. Christmas shop in our house is done, boxed off by the end of November. But I do think if you look just at that Black Friday, Cyber Monday event in isolation and don't think about that wider context, what does my brand want to achieve? Who have I got sat in my database that's not yet purchased? What opportunities have I got? When does payday land? How's the consumer feeling? It's very easy to walk into this needs to be a 4-day event with discount trap, when actually to get real success out of it, and that promotion fatigue point is so interesting, as is what Ninja did to kind of almost combat that with, we only went with £14 and then dropped another £14. I think you've really got to think about the event in a much broader, much more strategic context these days.
Definitely. I think it used to be very much that 4-day window, as you've said. And I think that now what's more at play is that, and this will come into some of the points around how and when to use discounts. I think more and more people are becoming more and more savvy to Amazon. And I think that it used to be a case of everyone would wait until Black Friday, but we've literally just had 4 weeks since our last Prime Day. So how much can the market really change in them 4 weeks? If you're a consumer, you probably have no concept of what's happening behind the scenes. And I think if I was planning out Q4, as I am doing already for my clients for next year, I would be then specifically pinpointing when not to discount. Because there are some clients who obviously love to discount and I'm still on board with not discounting. But I do think that it's a much wider conversation than just let's do these 4 days. It's what does that mean for pre and post Black Friday? What does it mean for December? What if I sell through stock and I can't get stock until January? It's a much wider conversation than just I'm going to give my clients 33% off.
Yeah, Becky, you used the S word there, stock.
Yes,
a nightmare of this period of time. So we've come from a Prime Day into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, fake Fridays, jumped in the middle of that and caused a bit of a mess, and then we're going to go into Christmas. How do brands manage inventory over peak? How do you get the right amount in, not too much in? Go on, tell me about it.
I think I might have a slightly novel approach to this, which for me is overstock in October always. So forget Prime Day in Black Friday in October. Just think about overstocking in time so to make sure that you've got enough for November. You'll always clear through that stock, but it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. I would also think about weighting your stock forecasting, or thinking about if you're looking back over 60 days or you run on a 60-day stock cover, which we do for most of our clients, I wouldn't necessarily be looking back at a direct 60 days for stocking up. I would be looking at what does the last 7 days look like, what's happened in the last 7 days, but then building that into a 60-day forecast as well. So almost weight it around last 60 days, I'll use 75% of that data to build my forecast. Last 7 days, I'll use 25% of that. We're never, ever going to have full visibility of what's happening within the Amazon warehouses. And my advice would be prepare for the worst, because we've had some clients sending stock in this year at the end of October that's only just landing now. So overstock, be over-prepared, and then be prepared to try and sell through as heavily as you can coming into December and January.
Almost, I'm reading between the lines there, Becca, but it almost reads like you're saying that there's a risk there that you overstock and you start to carry some storage fees. Are you saying it's probably better to face into that and then discount if needed to clear through, rather than actually sell out over these peak periods?
Yeah, I think it will do so much more damage to your listings to sell out when you're in these key periods, or even as we're climbing into Christmas. For me, I would rather be paying a little bit extra on storage fees and then pull that back as we go into January and just be a little bit lighter with my shipments going in there.
Yeah, so it's thinking a bit more longer term rather than just there's a bit of pain on storage fees for a 2, 4, 6, 8 week period. You're saying look beyond that, think about the impact in January, February by losing rankings, etc.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Becca, I want to kind of touch a bit on using customer data. It's clear that with the client that you talked about, you kind of understood they had a pool of data you could leverage for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. How can brands leverage the data, the insights that they gain over Black Friday, Cyber Monday to transform that strategy going forward? How can you use what we've learned in the last few days?
Yeah, so for me, Black Friday is all about understanding how we drive new to brand customers. So looking at your market basket analysis, going really heavy against those people that you're buying, and Jake will probably step into this when he comes into his ads piece, but really targeting those people that your products are consistently bought against. You can use that within Black Friday and then as we climb into the new year. But also looking at who your top converters are for search terms. So what are your 5-10 key search terms? Who are the top 3 bestsellers for that, and how do we go really heavily after them? Clients who focus really heavily on just discounting all year in and out, I think around this time of year, people are expecting you to go much heavier. So my advice would be to test and learn throughout the year. Trial your different types of discount types if you are partial to a discount. Trial your discount levels. I have a client who I know that if we go below 20%, it makes no difference to discounting. So we might as well discount 5% because we're still protecting the profit line. But then look outside of Amazon. It's not just a case of everything you can buy within Amazon. You have, because most of our clients have customer bases out there. They have different ways of driving traffic, and we're trialing that throughout all our customers. Email is really great, especially because we can track it through attribution. We've got that direct pool of your consumers that we don't know if they've shopped on Amazon, and we can just start to migrate them across or back. And we're just manipulating the traffic a little bit. And I think that Black Friday is great for getting new consumers in. You're discounting really heavily, but just be prepared that that consumer is always going to want to buy that product at that price. So for me, discount early, follow up with a no discount over Black Friday. If people are buying from you on Black Friday, it's because they're coming to you. You've got a product that they want. They're going to buy it at full price.
Fantastic. Thank you, Becca. You talked there about price a little bit. I'm going to jump ahead into some questions that I want to ask you, because that price point seems quite relevant. Many consumers, and I saw this quite in a report from Which mid-November time, they don't perceive that they're getting the best price on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's lots of questions being asked from a consumer point of view as to, am I getting an actual bargain? And I can certainly see that myself when I'm looking at some of those retail prices. How should sellers adopt their strategies to make sure they're getting the price right on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and balance that discounting, the true discounting, with perceived discounting? How do they get that right?
I think for me, I think that stat is 100% correct. I think we're seeing more discounting than we ever have before. We've had really open conversations with our clients that they're holding more stock than ever. Our external resellers are having more of an impact. For me, it's not just a case of what's the sweet spot. I think it's a case of how do we get those clients. So lightning deals are brilliant over Black Friday because you're giving a consumer a much shorter window to come and purchase from you, but you're also giving them the FOMO of, oh, we've only got 500 units at this price, so come and buy from us. I think that it's not just a case of participating for the sake of participating. I think it's a wider piece around, from a profitability point of view, does it work? What is my category doing? And, overall, do I really need to do a discount? Do I need to go as heavy as I usually would? Personally, what I'm trying to already start to talk about our clients for next year is at key events where Amazon announce a discount. So we know that the week before or 2 weeks before Prime Day, Amazon will announce Prime Day to the consumers. That's when I would run a discount. That day, when all the traffic is coming, when everyone's going to see what products are in offer, that's the day I would start to run discounts, and then I would trade at full price for Prime Day. It's a little bit harder with Black Friday because everyone knows it's coming, but Fake Friday is when they announce Black Friday. So that's the day I would discount, and then I wouldn't do anything for the rest of Black Friday.
If anyone's not picked up, Becca, there's a thread with you, isn't there, about thinking about how do you do discounts. I think as a consumer, you love a discount. As a seller, you think a lot more strategically about the role of it. I think that's very, very prudent thinking.
Yeah.
Something you touched on there was the urgency and speed of those deals. One of the best deals I saw over Black Friday, and I missed out on it, was Amazon invite-only Prime deals for the Prime TVs, the Fire TVs. I think they were selling £550 55-inch TVs for £150. And the way they ran that deal was invite only. You bought the voucher, you then got access to the product, and they almost forecasted the demand. They knew how many they needed available. It was all pre-sold. And strategically from Amazon, what did it drive? More Prime subscribers, more Prime video viewers, more viewers of their media. So a very clever deal, but the way they structured that on the invite only was just urgency. Get the voucher, and once it's gone, and that worked phenomenally well for them.
I think what is really interesting, what would be interesting, is to see in the audience how many people didn't discount and whether or not that had a negative impact on them. Yeah. But then the other side of it for me is, a vendor account lives or breathes by net PPM at the minute. We know that. We know that the majority of our accounts are coming into terms negotiations. And what we're finding is that clients that participated in Amazon's deals or Amazon's recommended deals, or where the wider landscape has meant that Amazon's had to reduce the prices even lower, we're now having COG decreasing requests. We're having terms increasing requests. So if I'm a vendor sat on this side thinking, what do I do for Black Friday? I would be trying to forecast out how far my terms negotiations are and whether or not my net PPM is going to be so significantly impacted over Black Friday or November. How much impact is that going to have for my 2024 year? Because they're coming really heavy this year. The vendor managers are really going for it this year, and it is all driven by the fact that Amazon's margin's getting crushed. So for me, it's not just a case of let's just discount because we'll get loads of sales through and loads of POs will come through in January. It's yes, but just have a moment and think about what that can do across your entire account.
Is what are the implications, what are the consequences? Yeah, I'm thinking
exactly,
about the big picture. Yeah. Becca, thank you for that. I was going to see if we can pull a quick poll, actually, because you talked a little bit there about have people discounted.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, we've got 2 polls, actually. I'd like to know, people that are listening, did you achieve what you wanted on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Did you get what you expected out of the event? Let's just see if we can get that poll up on screen. 2 seconds. Yeah, that should be coming up. If not, it's in the polls tab on the right-hand side. And I'm going to follow that up, just give a few seconds for people to submit their votes on there. It looks like I've got most results coming in. And then secondly, did you actually run any promotions on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or did you follow Becca's school of thought and not discount and be the Scrooge of Christmas?
I'm hoping that some people run our July Prime Day and took the punt to try and not discount. I would love to hear that happened.
There's some really interesting results coming through, actually, Becca, here. So let's just look at these. So did you achieve what you wanted on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? 60% of people did. 40% of people didn't, for round numbers. Did you run any promotions on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Becky, you're going to be so disappointed. 80% of people did run promotions, but 20% didn't run promotions. So
I'm loving that 20%. I'm loving that people that took that punt. Thank you, everyone, for trying it.
But the key point here is it doesn't have to be about discount. You've talked there, Becca, about the bigger picture. I mean, that's one of the key things I'm taking here. Why are you doing something? What's happening in your world? What's happening on Amazon? What's happening in the consumer's mindset? What do you want to achieve? Then could you, should you, why should you do a discount is probably the follow-up question to that. And it's that's kind of my mantra all the way through anything with Amazon anyway, is start with why, start with what you're trying to achieve, what problems you're trying to solve, then work out how can Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or any other event play a role in achieving that. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the year. Don't just think about Q4. As much as we all talk about it being the golden quarter and we all get really excited when October comes around, there is a whole other 3 quarters of the year to trade through. And you don't want to chew up all your margin just in that last quarter to then have to spend the next 3 months recovering it.
Absolutely. Becca, thank you. I want to take the spotlight off you a little bit. I'm going to turn the lens onto our award-winning ads manager, Jake Browett. Jake, come on to advertising for kind of December and beyond and following Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Maybe just start with, what were the most successful strategies you and your clients deployed over Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What worked for you, Jake?
So, ultimately this comes down to looking at the data. And as the poll suggested, and as Becca's talked about, it's not just running deals for the sake of running deals. It's looking to make sure those deals make sense in the first place. So looking at margin, where the products sit currently in the category, and if deals are needed in the first place. From an advertising perspective, some of the strategies that work better for our clients is around a deal event is the classic tentpole strategy. So this is, as we lead into a deal event, what we aim to do is start to build momentum, start to drive traffic and build brand awareness, and certainly build deal awareness around the products that are going to be in promotion. And then during the deal event is when we'll have our highest sort of PPC activity and driving the most amount of traffic to ensure that those products get the maximum visibility and people can capitalize on the deals that are available. And then it's important then leading out of a deal event that we've got a strategy that kind of makes sure we can capture or recapture any customers we lost during the deal event. So for the clients I work with, certainly gaining visibility early on involves looking at things like utilizing top of search placements for a lot of the ASINs that are in promotion. With Amazon's deal strategy now, there's a lot of notifications about an upcoming deal. There's the opportunity for customers to add to cart or create a deal alert on a certain ASIN as well. So if you can maximize the amount of traffic you get in this period, when the deals go live, the customers then, whether they use the app or mobile, can get a notification and email to say that a deal is live, and get that maximum visibility. So you've built that customer base there, and they've built that as well. And then during the deal event is, again, top of search to really capitalize on the traffic, put yourself ahead of your competitors. During the deal event, the purchase intent is higher than most other times of the year, and the top of search placement is the highest converting kind of traffic placement you can get on Amazon as well. So it's important to be competitive and exist in that space. And then, as I said, coming out of the other side of it, it's utilizing a slightly different strategy where we can pull away from some of those top of search strategies, but look at some retargeting. So look at the customers that might have viewed the product and not purchased, to try and recapture them at a later stage if the interest is still there. And ultimately, if you're a brand that isn't taking part in discounts and promotions so heavily, you can also retarget customers that might have viewed competitor products or similar products, and then target those at a later stage to kind of try and convert them over to your listing. I think those are some important ones. And another sort of certain watch out is ensuring consistent month-long budget management. So coming into a deal event, the traffic can really escalate. So it's important, with the clients that are participating heavily in deals and large advertising strategies, it's managing the budget earlier in the month, particularly that week lead up to the deal event when purchases are sometimes a little bit lower. Customers are waiting for deals. You can kind of pull back on some of your spend and some of your budgets there, and make sure you've got enough budget so your campaigns are running throughout the day and certainly throughout the deal period as well. Probably some of the most important points to look at.
Jake, do you think there's any benefit in us actually thinking about maintaining some budget for post the event, where potentially some of our competitors have run out of budget and we can go a little bit heavier?
I think, yeah, definitely. It depends on what you've done during the deal event. I think if you've been in promotion and offered it at a lower price, then that's probably the main point to focus on. And then trying to post-event, then you might not be able to capture that traffic as effectively, because the customers, if they've already viewed the product at a lower price and then they're viewing it later on, they're not, it's a lower price. But I think certainly during the deal event is more important than post-event.
Okay.
Do you think agility's got to be important here then, Jake? Because to Becca's question, understanding what the competition are doing, understanding how your budgets are performing, have you got budget left? Do you need to request more budget? Is there a big thing here about thinking on your feet and being able to act and respond quickly in the moment of these events?
Yeah, I think, as we see each event, it depends on the publicity around it, depends on the public sentiment. Some can be underwhelming, some can be overwhelming. And I think you've got to be, you've got to do a lot of planning ahead, look at previous data, analyze how previous events have performed, but you've got to be reactive on the day as well. Setting budgets which you might think cover, so if you've got any software that allows notifications for budgets, you can be super reactive and ensure things are running and react to how the promotions are running, stock availability, and all these sorts of things as well.
Excellent. Jake, we've talked a bit there about what kind of works successfully, what to do for a positive. Have you got any examples of things that didn't work so well over Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Any particular categories that didn't work? Any tactics that didn't work?
Yeah, I think there's certainly some sellers, or certainly Amazon, are of the opinion that everyone should discount, everyone should run increased ad spend, and for certain categories in Amazon, I know as a consumer, there are certain categories where discount is expected, and customers go there to to buy from these categories, things like electronics, beauty, homeware, Amazon, all the Amazon tech is always for sale. So I think for these categories, it's really important. If there are a lot of other categories where they're less exciting products, maybe, in sort of, we work with one brand in industrial machinery, and certainly that's not the sort of brand or product where people are going to Amazon to look for big discounts. So I think that's important to look at. I think other points to consider as well is if your item is not in the FMCG space, if it's a single purchase, there's no real opportunity for upsell or cross-sell, then it might not be worth sort of running a big promotion and a big deal, because there's no lifetime value of that, of acquiring a customer during the deal events.
Excellent. Thank you, Jake. Now, one of the questions I'm probably going to maybe stick Becca up for here, don't worry, Becca, I'm not throwing you under the bus, but you've just told everybody we're going to overstock over this period. Jake, she's now made that your problem. What can brands implement after peak season to clear through all that stock that Becca's just encouraged everybody to put into a warehouse? How can you clear that stock, maintain visibility, and trade successfully after Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
So I think, there's a few metrics to look at here, and it's not a one size fits all. It's going to be dependent upon the sort of category you're going to be in. So it's important to look at customer acquisition. So again, if you're sitting in the FMCG space and you're looking at that overstock, if you've acquired a lot of new customers over that period, then certainly having a consistent retargeting strategy, so understanding the life cycle of your product and looking to target those customers again at the point of repurchase on Amazon. I think it's good to look at competitors at this point as well. So if there are a number of competitors that run deals that have complementary products, I think we can target some of those products as well to kind of lean into that. And I think further to what Becca said, that might be a time to look at promotion as well and kind of make sure you've got that opportunity for customers to buy at a discounted rate if you are looking at overstock issues into January.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jake. What I'm going to do, guys, actually, look at the time, conscious on almost every webinar we've run so far. We get 5 minutes from the end and go to audience Q&As. We've got quite a few coming in, so I want to break early from our conversation and go into the audience Q&As. So time to think on your feet, get ready for these. First question we've got coming in is from Dion. Do you tend to see a trend where November ends up being flat as a whole, so where Black Friday and Cyber Monday peaks, but other periods actually dip? What are your thoughts, guys? Becca, maybe go to you first on that one. You're nodding away happily.
Yes, 100%. We see this across not just Amazon, but across all of e-com. We generally find that people will hold off purchasing until they think that they're going to have this perceived discount or a perceived deal. And then sales will pick up over Black Friday and then flatten back off again at the back end of the month. What I would say is that you'll generally see that if you took out your spikes and evened it out, you'd probably see a marginal uplift versus your prior months unless you're heavily investing. It's definitely becoming more apparent that they're waiting longer and longer. And this for me is the reason why I don't personally want to discount my clients. I try to keep them away from discount. It's because if those people are waiting until Black Friday to shop with you, and then you don't do a discount, they've been waiting, they're going to buy from you anyway.
Good shout. I think for me personally, the devil's in the detail. I think if you look at retail Amazon overall, I'd probably say yes to your question, John. I think it probably does average out. But then if you look to how individual brands can trade it, and I'll pull the two examples back from the presentation earlier on, is there a chance that Remington probably created that product just for Black Friday, Cyber Monday? It's no coincidence that this product has gone from 0 to £16 million. Have they seen, would that have averaged out over the month? No, not based on their historical trading patterns. So a very clever strategy there has given Remington in particular a really good boost. Ninja with their air fryer, probably a similar scenario. That product wouldn't have seen that level of growth over November that it saw with the trading activity it put in place. So I think for me, the devil's in the detail. You've got to think about how you trade Black Friday and how you maximize it for your brand and shift November up rather than letting Black Friday just grab sales out of early November or the end of November. I was moving to a question here that I think is actually quite related and maybe a much broader question. Do you think Black Friday needs to be reinvented to really capture consumers' full attention?
Do you want me to take that one?
If you've got something to say, go for it, Becca. I've got my thoughts, but over to you guys.
Yes, it would be my view and opinion. I think that there was a very big excitement, especially from the UK point of view, when it, Black Friday was never really a thing. And Amazon's kind of the reason that it's now live in the UK and that it's such a big deal in the UK now. And we're seeing, Black Friday is no longer about Black Friday. It's about Black Friday month, Black Friday weeks. We're seeing people discount from the end of December saying that Black Friday deals are here. So for me, I think what would be perfect would be for Black Friday to go back to that small, the purpose of it was for Americans to go shopping after Thanksgiving and then you go Christmas shopping. It's no longer that. It's about, I need my air fryer, or how can I stock up as much as possible on certain products. So I think for me, I would love to see it return back to that small niche, and where less brands are involved in it as well. I think that we'll always be in a position where big brands are included, but I think indie brands especially should be pulling away from these events and starting to kind of navigate their own fates, especially on Amazon.
Great shout.
I think just to add to that, I think where it needs maybe not full reinventing, but a bit of a rebranding. And I think one thing we've seen year on year, and it's a growing trend, is customer trust around Black Friday and Black Friday deals. We see Which reports talking about fake discounts, brands pretending to be discounted, but it's not actually lower than any price of the year. And I think that there's potentially a lot of work Amazon can do to get that trust back to the customer, to ensure them that it isn't a real deal they are getting. It's a limited time, and it's not just another kind of Black Friday fake deal.
I think from my point of view, it's kind of here to stay. And my view is brands almost have to embrace it on the format it is. If I go back to my childhood, Boxing Day sale was the big thing. I might be giving my age away here, but you kind of got your Christmas money. You went on the bus to town the next day, or mum and dad dropped you off, and you literally scoured the shops because at 9 a.m. on Boxing Day, prices got crashed. Does anybody go to town for Boxing Day sale anymore? Does anybody go to town for New Year's Day sale anymore? No, those events have evolved because the world has changed around it. And I think what you're seeing with Black Friday, Cyber Monday was originally that let's go shopping after Thanksgiving, and that really focused one-day event that became a 4-day event that then became Cyber Week. And we saw it this year, week 3, week 4 of October, major high street chains in the UK would go into Black Friday. That wasn't necessarily strategic, as in planned. It was sales are up the wall. What are we going to do to respond to this? So I think for me, the problem is in the naming of it. It's not Black Friday anymore. It's November discounting before peak. And for me, brands have to embrace that. One thing I've personally seen a lot less of this year is brands doing blackout Fridays. There's been a lot less brands saying from an ethical point of view, we're not embracing this mass consumerism. I think partly that's the economy. People are needing to trade harder and go after stuff. And it's also not a focused event around a single day anymore, where historically it was gone by a load of stuff dirt cheap that is driving negative value into the countries where these things are manufactured. It's a much broader event now. Dare I say it's another sale that lasts for an entire month.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we can cherry pick. Who else has got the interesting questions with lots of upvotes against it? Let's see what we have. We'll go for this one. So Black Friday has boosted the best-selling rank of my product. How do I hold the growth of that product when the regular price is back?
I say that's a very tricky one, and I think it's important to understand your product's value proposition versus the competitors. So I think if price is the only factor that is putting your product ahead of your competitors, and then that reverts back, that may be a longer term issue to look at prices and margins. Again, if you're similar price to the competitors, then it's looking at how do you maximize sales velocity after the event once that price reduction's gone, and that's going to be through a number of promotional activity and advertising activity.
Becca, anything to add?
No, I think it's a really valid point. I would be looking at how much your rankings have changed because of your price reduction, assume you did a price reduction. And then, like Jake says, it's about if it is a bigger thing around price, you're going to have a look at either accept that you're not going to maintain that price point and that number one bestseller slot, or reflect your price to be that, or heavy discounting, because that's the one thing we can never be aware of is how much our competition is spending.
Yeah, great shout. Thank you, Becca. I think we've got time for 2 more, so we'll go with this one next. Do you think consumers are taking longer to make decisions on purchasing high-priced items? Are they waiting for discounts in the new year, or are they Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or have they just jumped to another brand that's discounting? I think for me also it's probably a point here to ask around how do you capture a consumer on Black Friday, Cyber Monday that may have been sat there waiting for that high-priced item? Do people typically sit and wait? How do you manage those kind of scenarios?
I think buy now, pay later has had a massive impact on this. I think that where consumers would naturally wait and sit for a Black Friday deal or a Boxing Day deal, I'm not too old for those, Andy.
Thank you.
I think that the buy now, pay later, especially like you can do it in multiple different ways through Amazon. I think they've taken this away. I think more and more people will just buy on instincts because they've got the opportunity to spread that cost. Low credit options, I think, are really starting. I think we're starting to see that consumer mindset shift around. I'm not waiting. I'll just purchase and I'll pay it off rather than saving up and then buying it. I think jumping to another brand is an interesting point. I can see why that would happen. However, if someone has, if someone's got the heart set on something, I think it's more leaning into, can they afford it? We know what the year's been like. People are struggling. And I do think that buy now, pay later is having a bigger impact than potentially we've given it credit for.
I haven't seen the stats from this year, but I believe it was this time last year Amazon published something like 13 or 16% of all purchases on Black Friday went via buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
I suspect this year that number's gone up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think customers are certainly more savvy when it comes to making decisions, and that certainly affects higher priced items. So as they're aware of things like looking at reviews, potentially false reviews, price over time, a number of these factors. And I wouldn't say necessarily they're waiting for the new year, but for higher priced items, a lot of customers will hold off. I know I do it personally when I'm shopping, but electronics, things like this, hold off until the deal event just to try and get the best price possible.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, we have time for one final question, and I think this is probably the hot potato that we've, Becca in particular, might have something to say about. In terms of discounting on Amazon, do you think over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, consumers are really getting the best prices? Becca, yeah, I want to go straight to you on this one. The shake of the head tells me you've got something to say.
Yeah, no, I think that if you're a savvy Amazon shopper, you're shopping all year round. I think that Black Friday and Cyber Monday is becoming, as Jake says, people putting prices up to bring them back down. If it was me personally, I am an Amazon consumer. You might be able to see a little hint of the boxes piling up behind me. Buy when you see it. That would be my advice to any consumer. And from a brand point of view, think about the negative noise around what is happening around these events, and think about how often you can run a successful Amazon strategy at full price. You can, as long as your price is market aligned and you've got that value behind your product. I think that it's becoming worse throughout the year of people just manipulating prices. We see it quite a lot in beauty. People will start to put their prices up in the build up to Black Friday to discount back to sell price. For me, I think it's getting worse every year.
I think for me, there's also a very difficult balance to get right there, because all we're really talking about is price establishment, a typical retail pricing strategy. I used to do a lot of work in the bathrooms industry where high-low pricing was literally how it worked. I mean, everybody knows about the DFS sofas January sale. The sofa was never £2 million. It was always £2,000. But the price goes up to establish a false high, then it's discounted and sold at that price. Consumers are very savvy to that and switched on to that. But if you play that game on Amazon and you have to establish a high price point to then go to discount, at the point you're establishing that high price point, that's having a detrimental impact on your sales, not just because the price is going up, because that happens in every sales channel, but because of the ranking algorithm. If you're selling a product that is now 25% higher than the market average, that will have an impact on your rankings and therefore your sales. So it's really difficult to get that right on Amazon. I think to your point, Becca, for me, high-low pricing has a role to play, because otherwise you can't do discounting. But you can't operate within the same parameters that you do in traditional retail. You can't keep going super high to keep going super low. It doesn't work from an algorithm point of view. It also devalues the brand exceptionally quickly.
I actually always used Domino's as an example of this. You know, Domino's are always in deal. Domino's are always on offer, but they will never be able to come out of discount. Yep. Because every customer who's ever shopped at Domino's is so used to buying at that discounted price that as soon as, even if you just sold the same deal at a price without a strike through, the consumer is so used to seeing that red strike through price that they'll be waiting again. So they've almost manipulated the consumers into waiting for this deal that's not actually a deal. And I think that that's what's starting to happen across Amazon, is we're constantly going 30 days on, 30 days off, 30 days on, 30 days off. And then 30 days when you're not in discount, you're having so much more damage on your brand. Whereas if you just did 3 deals a year, you're having much less impact across your bottom line.
Jake, Becca, I'm kind of left with nothing other to say than thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you both giving up your time, sharing your thoughts, opinions and views on what's happened over Black Friday and Cyber Monday and how to take that forward. Feels a little bit early to do this, but this is our last webinar of the month, last webinar of the year. So we will be back in January where we're going to be looking at our tips for success on Amazon in 2024. That'll be a very, very different format with a panel of experts from all around the Amazon industry. So it's not just us talking at you. We are really bringing together some of the best from Amazon vendor, Amazon seller, Amazon ads for a really open conversation. This will be so much more than just the top 10 tips for 2024. So keep your eye open for that. I'm sure Whitney and our marketing team will be getting in your inboxes very, very quickly. But final, from me, from Jake, from Becca, and from every Adventure Forge, we hope you have a fantastic trading period up to Christmas, fantastic Christmas with your family and friends, and we look forward to seeing you all in the new year.
Definitely.
Guys, have a good
Thanks,
afternoon.
everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah, guys.